So we did a small exercise in the office today, at the studios today, and what we did was we asked people to draw a bicycle from memory.
Most people have seen a bicycle so many times that they think this is going to be roughly easy. No?
Yeah.
We're not asking for an artistic bike, just a schematic of where the different parts are in relation.
Where's the handle? Where's the body? Where are the wheels? Where is the gear system and chains and whatnot? Just that much. Nothing fancy. We don't want like a real life drawing.
Yeah.
If you want, you can actually try this exercise right now. Pause the video, do it, and then continue from where it is, and we'll tell you what happened. The collage that you see on the screen, that is what happened. These are some of the examples of the bicycles drawn by people when we asked them to draw a bicycle from memory. Now, bear in mind, all of these people have seen bicycles. All of these people were confident that they can draw a bicycle. Arey, cycle, we've ridden them so many times. This is what they drew.
The intention isn't to make fun of these people. Okay?
Yeah.
All of us have this problem. Me, Shrikant, and I'm sure you, right? Things that we see on a regular basis and we use them, we somehow convince ourselves that we understand how they work. So for example, a spray bottle or like a sanitizer squirt bottle, right? We think we understand how it works. So I press and there is pressure and things come out, right?
Yeah.
A ball pen.
Yeah.
How does a ball pen work? How does an electric motor work, right? Or how does a car turn? I mean, are the wheels going the same distance, turning the same number of times or not?
They're not.
How does scuba diving work? A whole bunch of these things. We did an experiment in office. We've asked people to rate from 1 to 7 how well they understood. And for the ones they said they understood reasonably well, we asked follow-up questions. Like for example, for a spray bottle, if I put pressure and the pressure pulls the liquid up, why is that pressure allowing the liquid to escape? Why isn't it pulling it back?
Yeah,
right?
why isn't this liquid also coming back and getting pressed back? What is happening there?
For a ball pen, what exactly is happening? Why is this ink, which kind of looks solid, write very smoothly when I'm writing, but when I just hold it like this and I shake it like this, it's not flying around, right? Or for a car, when it is turning, if I take a turn, the inner wheel is going
a smaller distance than the outer
wheel is going a greater distance.
Yeah.
So are they turning the same number of times or is it turning more? Is
Spoiler
the outer
alert,
wheel,
they are not.
Is the outer wheel turning more than, they're connected, like, aren't they connected like this or not?
Yeah,
right?
if you think of two wheels at the end of this and the car turns like this wheel is obviously not rotating as much as this other wheel on the outside. How is that happening? What is the magic there?
So a whole bunch of things. And then after we asked this follow-up question and people realized that some of the things they could answer, some they couldn't, everybody reduced their
scores of how much they knew answers to those topics.
And of course, we are not so smart that we came up with this ourselves, right? This is a well-known experiment conducted by researchers and they call this the illusion of explanatory depth, right?
Yeah.
And this has been replicated many times over and over again. They have found the same thing. We are all overconfident. We think we understand how things work because we sort of hear an explanation by someone or we just see it happening and we're like, okay, yeah, that seems to make sense, right? So, for example, if I take a SLR camera, right? In the viewfinder, if I look at it, I am seeing the same thing which is going to be on film.
Whereas the truth is what you're seeing from the viewfinder level and what you're seeing and what the camera is seeing at the, the sensor level, they are two different views technically. How are they the same? Why are they the same?
More importantly, if you have ever seen a pinhole camera in school, you know that the image inside a camera is upside down. And why are you seeing it straight in the viewfinder, right?
How are you seeing it straight in the viewfinder?
Like that, right?
So many things.
So many things we just sort of assume that we know how the world works, but we don't.
The illusion of explanatory depth.
Well, there is a different statement which we probably will do another episode on, is that reality contains a surprising amount of detail, right?
Yes.
Our brains are experts at simplifying things to a point where we think we understand them. and then we can keep everything in our head so that we do not get overwhelmed by, oh my god, everything in the world is so complex and I don't understand anything, right? It's so much better that everything in the world is easy and I understand most of the things.
Yeah, there are at least 10 different shades of green in this one single frame that you're looking at least 10 different shades of green. Yeah, that's just an example of how many, what the level of detail there is in reality. The biggest impact of this experiment when Naveen did it on me was I suddenly went very Socratic in my approach and went, I don't know anything. I don't know anything in life, Naveen. I don't know anything in life.
So first of all, before this experiment, most people overestimate their understanding of the world.
Yeah.
But the world contains a surprising amount of detail, right? Especially whenever we read an explanation, when we get a forward on WhatsApp, right? We think we understand things. We think we understand complex politics, right? And we think, why doesn't it do this? It's so simple. And the answer is it's not simple, but we don't realize it. Okay?
Yeah.
Because there are usually gaps in any explanation, but our brain just coolly smooths them over and prevents us from seeing the gaps.
The details, the gaps in those explanations.
Just because social media and WhatsApp and TV and videos on YouTube, right? They keep sending the simple explanations to us.
Yeah.
And this availability of a lot of information is confusing us with understanding, right? Just because there's a lot of information doesn't mean that it is complete or correct, right?
So you might, when Naveen said videos on YouTube, you might think, Naveen, your episodes are also trying to simplify things. So are you also smoothing over the gaps to some extent? Yes.
Well, I think importantly, I view our episodes as being something that arouses curiosity.
Yeah.
So you want to find out more and ideally you want to go and do more things yourself, right?
And that is the intent of this entire series, to arouse that curiosity in you so you go and do further research.
So one more example I'll give, right? When I first read about the illusion of explanatory depth, that was probably like 6-7 years ago. I read it, oh yes, I understand, this is how it is, right? For this episode, I actually did that experiment here. And for it, I just realized, oh, I didn't think of this, I didn't think of that, I didn't think of that. And I had to put in much more effort to do that experiment than I had originally imagined. And even then, there are still some gaps. And if I want to do it again, there's a whole bunch of other things I would have to do. In fact, that paper, I read far more carefully because I wanted to do the experiment than I had ever done in my life, right? So this is an important part. If you learn by doing, you learn far more.
Okay.
As opposed to you'll just read about it.
That is true. That is true. You learn far better when you're actually doing something than just reading about it.
There's another important way of learning, right? Which is, I'll describe an experiment to you.
Sure,
right?
go ahead.
So there were a group of people and they were all told they're going to be taught something complicated.
Okay.
And one of them was told that you will be asked to go and explain this thing to a different group.
Okay.
Who's not in the room right now. Right? And then those guys will be tested and these guys will be tested. Right?
Okay. So my success depends on the other group doing well.
Right. At the end of this whole exercise, they tested. They did not care about the other group. Only in the first group itself, they saw the difference in scores between the person who was told he will have to explain it and the rest of the people. And the person who
had to explain it
scored far better than the others.
Because the person who had to explain it understood the concept from the perspective of explaining it to another person.
You learn, you pay much more attention. In fact, if they had made the person go and explain, that person, while explaining, would have realized a whole bunch of other gaps in understanding and would have gone and looked up things, right? So, teaching is one of the best ways of learning, right? There is no better way to understand gaps in your knowledge than trying to teach it to someone who's going to ask questions.
how do I prevent this from happening?
Right. Yeah. So I think one is, of course, if you ever get a chance to teach something, you should go for it. If you get a chance to explain it to other people, go for it. Or maybe just train yourself to always think of, okay, this, maybe I'll have to explain this to someone else. But the best way is, of course, to actually do something, right? The way, this illusion of explanatory depth is only for these concepts, complicated concepts where this thing leads to this thing leads to this thing. If it is some procedural knowledge, how do you cook something, right? Those things people remember easily. There is no that level complication. If you say that you can make a good upma, you probably can make a good upma.
I can.
Right? So procedural things are easy. Things that involve actions are easy. There are no gaps there, right? So try to do things.
Better than reading is actually explaining. Better than explaining is actually doing.
Right. And not necessarily that you do the whole thing, right? You do smaller experiments, do parts of things, right? But just in general, tinkering. Right. In fact, this is in our new education policy also, that there should be tinkering labs in schools. Government is paying for a lot of them. So there's nothing preventing us adults from also doing things like that, right? Keep doing things, keep tinkering with things, keep building little things, right? It could be in a computer, like building websites, building little things. It could be not related to technology, right? If you could write articles.
To some extent, arts and crafts also counts as tinkering with creativity. Yeah.
So creation, in general, creation is a good thing, right? That helps you understand your gaps when you try to create things.
So create websites, create arts, create crafts, work with broken electronics at home, try and figure out different ways of doing it.
One important thing I want to point out here, right, as a connection to a different concept I keep talking about, which is that whenever you're doing something big, right, there are two ways in which people approach that. One is do a lot of planning, think through all the possibilities, then come up with a strategy and then come up with a detailed plan and then implement it, right? The other way is to just have a rough plan, start something, see how it went, learn from that, then do the next thing and go in a loop, right? I keep talking about the OODA loop. Do something, observe.
I knew he was going to bring up the OODA
yourself,
loop.
Decide what is the next thing you want to do, and then act. And then repeat this. The faster the loop, the better you are. A different principle related to the same thing is anti-fragile by Taleb, right? That you make mistakes, learn from the mistakes. Trying to avoid mistakes entirely is a problem. Connection to this episode is that this big plan you are going to make in the beginning, that is bound to fail because you are overconfident about the details, right? Because you haven't actually done anything, your big plan is going to have gaps that you don't even realize are there. Right?
And those gaps will only come out when you're actually trying to implement the plan, by which time it will be
too late.
Probably too late.
Yes.
Yeah, so go ahead and implement an OODA loop. Of course, we are going to do an extensive episode on the OODA loop because we've teased it far too many times now, and we need to do like a detailed episode on the OODA loop as quickly as possible. So the key takeaways that I'm getting from this entire explanation of the illusion of explanatory depth is that A, action is more important than analysis.
Yes.
And B, just because someone tells you they know what they are doing, or just because someone tells you a certain way in which it needs to be done, doesn't mean it's always true.
I mean, one is that your understanding is likely to be not good. And second is that very likely even they have the illusion of
explanatory depth,
right? You have to dig in to see if they have actually done anything about it, or they are just giving gyan which they have learned from somewhere else.
So the next time you get a degree from WhatsApp University, please check the credentials of the professor who granted you that degree. Please.
More than credentials, check the track record. That's the point.
The illusion of explanatory depth. It affects us in ways we don't even know because our brain tends to gloss over a lot of things.
Yeah, and which is why the concept of illusion of explanatory depth, which I thought I understood before giving you GAN in this episode, I actually implemented it earlier today. We did that.
Yeah.
And that is why we are able to tell you with confidence that it works.
Yes, we did not fall for the illusion of explanatory depth. We actually went into depth and looked at how it panned out, which is why this is Shrikant, Naveen, Future IQ.
Thank you. Thank you for watching till the end. If you liked this episode, check out these others. You might like them also. And please share with your friends. I'm sure they will also like these. Thank you.